So welcome to a new on-campus series where we interview new faculty, introduce them to the CEIBS community. Today is our first 360-degree video. As you can see, we've got the guest accommodation here, we've got the auditorium, we have the pyramids. Over here we have the Commons building, which is actually here, and AC4 behind us, the faculty building. So if you have a move around with your mouse or pinch the screen, you can get a good view of the whole campus. So today we have Professor Nana with us. She's a recent arrival in CEIBS, so welcome today and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's nice to be invited.
Yeah. So obviously as I said, you're new. Could you just give us a little introduction of yourself and how you found yourself today sitting in this interview?
My name is Nana Yaa A Gyamfi. I like to introduce myself as Nana from Ghana because it's easier, like how people remember my name and remember where I'm from. Nana from Ghana. Yeah. I'm a lecturer at the OBHRM department. I officially joined CEIBS, the mother campus, in November last year. I arrived in Shanghai at the beginning of February. But I have a long history with CEIBS because I was actually working at the CEIBS Africa campus from 2013. So my entire academic career started with CEIBS as well, in the Africa campus.
How did your career go in Ghana?
So I finished my master's in organizational behavior in the UK at LSE in 2013, but I decided to come back to Ghana. I knew I wanted to pursue an academic career, but I wasn't ready back then. I was a bit burnt out from the intensity of the studies, especially getting my dissertation done. And I wasn't sure that I wanted to continue to study what I had done in my master's for the Ph.D. and especially for the beginning of my career. So I took some advice from my department's head in London, and then I came back to Ghana. And when I came, I got in touch with Prof. Matthew again, who was the executive director at CEIBS Africa. I had done some work with him after my undergrad degree at the University of Ghana, where I did some research assistance work. That's when I first came into contact with him. But when I finished my master's, I found out that he was in Ghana and he was beginning to lecture, to be a professor for CEIBS Africa. And he said I should come work with him, and I did. And it was a very good experience. So from 2013 to 2016, I was Prof. Matthew's research associate. And then in 2016, I began my MRM Ph.D. studies at IESE Business School in Barcelona. So I moved to Barcelona from 2016 to 2018 when I was doing the master's components, which is going to classes every day and so on. But from 2018, when I started the PhD part of the studies, I was spending more time in Ghana, so I started to do work with CEIBS Africa again. So I was doing more and more until I finished the PhD degree last year. And then I made the application to join the mother campus as a faculty member this time. Wow.
So what was your actual research area? What was your PhD in?
So my PhD is in, and my research is in cultural identity. So it's the case that it's more or less two separate literatures, cultural identity and identity. It doesn't seem intuitive, but for the most part, that is what it is. So identity research has its own theories. There's so many different divisions within it. But I think I'm trying to bring more of an identity perspective back into the study of cultural identity at the individual level. So that's what my interest is. I kind of try and think of identity as a tool that people use rather than a characteristic that they're born with or something that they acquire over a long period of time. I just try to look at the more dynamic aspect of it, in the day-to-day use.
But this sounds particularly interesting because we're obviously in a business school which is by nature very international, and there's people from all over come to study here. So what has brought you to China? Was this something which you thought about before, or did the opportunity just present itself and you thought, why not?
So working with CEIBS all those years, right? It was part of the dream, right? You would hope that you'd finish the PhD and you'd do well enough to qualify to finally be a faculty member. Because I mean, I was on the faculty side, but I was a research associate, which is quite different from being a professor. So I had that aspiration, but at the same time, I wasn't quite sure what shape or form a job with CEIBS as a faculty member would take, because it wasn't certain whether I would be spending more time in the Africa campus and then maybe coming here from time to time. I didn't even know if I would even get the CEIBS job, so maybe I would have gone to the UK or somewhere else instead. Maybe I would have found a job somewhere else on the continent. So it wasn't set in stone, and I think that has been one thing that, as someone who quite likes having control and planning things ahead, I've had to learn to become comfortable with uncertainty, because it gets to the point where the future really isn't in your hands, and you can just make measured decisions and hope for the best, right?
What's your impression so far of China itself?
I love it. I think it's beautiful. And the thing is, I've been warned not to assume that I've seen China, because Shanghai is very different from the rest of China. And actually, I've been told that Pudong is another bubble all on its own, let alone on CEIBS, because I live on campus. So it's not as if I'm very much immersed in the broader Shanghai culture or broader Chinese culture. But I do like it. It's very peaceful. But more than that, I love the attitudes of people. They're very warm and welcoming and very helpful, right? So people ask, oh, what's the adjustment been like, culture shock? And I'm like, I think I've been quite cushioned from a lot, because I have so many people just falling all over themselves to be helpful, and I think that's a very nice.
But you hadn't been to China before at all?
No, I hadn't. I had the chance to come because my father used to travel to China quite a lot. He's retired now, but he was a businessman, and so he used to come to China from about 2010 onward. So in 2013, he and my sisters actually, I was 2014, I think. He and my sisters actually came to China, and I was supposed to come with them, but I had just started my job at CEIBS, and I felt bad to go and tell them, oh, I know I just started this job, but I'm going to China, so see you in a bit. So I passed it up in faith, knowing that while I'm working with CEIBS, one day, by some means, I will end up in China, whatever be the case. And yeah, it did take 10 whole years for that to happen, but it has, so.
So for a faculty member who you've kind of focused your research on culture, is this kind of like an anthropologist's dream, or how have you found that aspect so far? How does it relate to your work so far?
That's a very interesting question. It's interesting in that, so the researcher's dilemma, I think, is that sometimes we get so much honed in on our research that we forget about the thing we're researching and the environments we're in. So I haven't really thought about my being, I haven't even thought of myself as a test case, right, in terms of the cultural dynamics that are going on around me and getting used to things and all that. I think I've learned to sort of compartmentalize my research, the doing of the research, from living my life. So that's the general thing. I don't go about my daily life here thinking about, ooh, culture shock, ooh, cultural resource here. I don't think about it that way. But in truth, there are, I think I have had my eyes open to actually the similarities, the startling similarities that there are between Chinese culture and even Asian culture, because of some of the other people I've met on campus, and African culture, right? And I say African culture very advisedly, because Africa has a very big place and very different. But there are certain commonalities, right, that I find in Africa and Asia in terms of how we conceptualize family and our roles within family, and our relationships to authority, and how we think about what a person's place should be in society, and that sort of thing. So that has been very interesting to me. I had an inkling because I have had classmates and colleagues and so on who are Asian, but that has been sharpened with my being here.
So that's, in some ways, the culture shock which a lot of people experience, perhaps for you, perhaps wasn't quite as much as you thought it'd be.
No, it hasn't.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's been heightened because I had the chance to study in Europe. And so I've seen the different ways of relating to authority. And, for example, for someone who's very junior, how much do you speak up versus make yourself, as invisible as possible, and that sort of thing. But I think I struggled a lot trying to settle into the ways of relating to people, especially in the UK, because that was my first brush with it. I had a hard time calling my professors by their first name. You won't believe how hard it is. And but by the time I went to Spain, for example, it had been some time, so I had learned to adjust to that. Yes.
It's definitely something which is challenging for anyone who's existed in two quite different cultural environments, which norms to use.
Right.
So could you give an example of something which you have found in China is something you think China has in common with Ghanaian culture, which you maybe didn't expect or found surprising in some way?
Something that I didn't expect. I think, to be honest, I think I've had quite a lot of interaction with people from China. And actually in the CEIBS Africa campus, I was sharing an office with a colleague who is Chinese.
Right.
She's
She
from
kind of had a head start in some ways.
Yes. So I don't think I found something that has shocked me culture-wise. But I mean, there were lots of things that were affirmed. Like, for example, in terms of, again, relationships with authority, in terms of the devotion to family, for example, because no matter how forward-thinking people are and how much they want to establish themselves in their careers, there's always this thing about going home at least once a year or something like that. And I think that also has something to do with the fact that many people are either only children or one of two. So, you know, you still establish that strong link with your parents and your hometown and that sort of thing. So that was something that it was more or less, it came out very strongly to me, right? Because it's something that's also very strong in the African context. Even if your parents have 20 children, you know, you're considered, you know, a bad son or daughter if you don't come home, you know, quite often and that sort of thing.
It's like the Confucianism in China, it's almost, in some ways, almost a religion. People really pay a lot of attention to that ideal. But I'm interested to just go back to what you said a moment ago about your research and how you're a faculty who culture is at the centre of your work, but also the experience you're going through at the moment is something which inevitably give you food for thought and new perspective. So it sounds like it's something you need to have a lot of discipline to separate those two things. Is that the case?
I think, I mean, in general, I think it depends on a lot of things, personality, people's personal circumstances. Some people are just more prone to mixing up their personal lives with their work lives. I think some people also just aren't able to because of maybe family demands and that sort of thing. Personally, I think I'm in a weird middle ground because one, my family isn't here with me, they're in Ghana, so I'm basically here on my own. So my life is my work and I live on campus, so there isn't that clear barrier between I'm at work versus I'm going on. I'm just in it all the time. But at the same time, I think I'm also not the kind of person who puts her entire existence and validation in what she's doing, right, at that point in time. So I think in that sense, I don't take myself too seriously. I don't think that my research findings are gospel, you know. And actually, if you pay attention in you know, PhD, doctoral training and so on, they do tell you that you become an expert, right, by gaining a PhD. You become a very, you know, solid expert, but in a very little piece of the broad universe that is knowledge.
Very focused area.
Very focused. So you can't assume that what you see and experience and know is all there is. It's just one tiny perspective out of potentially many. So yeah, there's that. I guess for me that is it's like a natural barrier between my personal life and my work life, that I know what I do and I do believe in it. I do believe in the findings and the importance of the work, but I think I don't place my entire validation as a person from what title I'm holding, or you know, what my research findings are, or if my paper gets accepted or not. I think it's very important as an academic, because rejection is a very common part of the job.
Part of the reason I asked the question is you've not been here that long, but you've actually already established yourself as a friendly face and someone who's very welcoming around campus. And I think for us, after 3 years of not having as much interaction with the outside world as we might have liked, your arrival has actually been something of a reminder of for people who are in Shanghai, especially on Shanghai campus, that we are an international school, and we have new international people who will come and join us in the future. So in that way, I think it's really good to see you here.
No, thank you for saying that. That's very kind of you.
No, it's an honest feeling. Tell me a bit more about your PhD, because we were told by a word on the CEIBS street is that your PhD was held in very high esteem. If you could give us a little bit of background about that.
Okay, so so in my school, we were encouraged to do not like one body of work, but basically 3 publishable papers, of course, all related. So that comes together into a body of work. So I produced 3 publishable papers as my PhD, the output of my PhD work. The first one was published in a chapter. It's a chapter in a book, an edited book. The second one is a theory paper that my former supervisor and I are now working on submitting to a journal. hopefully will get published in the coming years. And the third paper is it's a qualitative research paper, which we already submitted to a journal and got rejected, but that's the name of the game. So we're reworking and collecting more data, deepening the analysis, that sort of thing. But the first paper that got published, a chapter, actually won an award for in the within the volume within which it was published as outstanding author contribution. So that was really nice and affirming to know that, okay, doing something right. Because I was telling you earlier that the problem with working on one thing for so long is that you start and you're very excited, but over time you begin to feel a bit lost in it. You wonder if you're doing the right thing. Is this actually any good at all? Is this rubbish? Does it sound good to only me? And the thing about hearing a great idea over and over and over again, reading it 1,000 times, is it stops being exciting. So having that external affirmation is great. And the other piece of affirmation that I had was when I defended my thesis, I got the panel, which was, they were both internal and external examiners from IESE, my school, and outside. And these were top scholars whose work I cited, and they were very enthused about my work. They were very happy with it, and I got really good grades. They gave me the Latin honors and all of that. So that was also really nice to know. It was affirming because it just gives you hope that, all right, okay, but it's not complete rubbish. It's fine. It's getting somewhere. And then most recently, my entire dissertation, I submitted it for this competition that the Academy of Management has in the International Management Division, and it was actually shortlisted as one of the finalists for Best Dissertation Award. It's one of 4 or 5, I think. So we're going to present it at the Academy of Management meeting in August, and then the winner will be announced. So we'll see how that goes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very proud of you for that.
Thank you.
All the CEIBS community. So you're going to be based in Shanghai for the foreseeable future, or what's your plan as regards where you're going to be and what are you going to teach?
I think at least for the next 2.5 years, because it's a 3-year contract I'm currently on, I'm going to be based here most of the time. I do have I've been extended the kindness of shuttling between here and Accra, spending some time in the year in Accra, because my family is my children are quite young, and so I get to spend time with them as well. And then I'll be working with the Africa campus while I'm in Accra, but I'm going to be most of the year in Shanghai. Beyond that, what the contract would look like or what my arrangements would be, it really depends on a number of different factors. It depends on what the school needs. It depends on what the need is also at that point in time for the Africa campus. So it remains to be seen. But I'm just very happy to have the opportunity to be on the CEIBS faculty and part of the CEIBS family in general. I think it's a dream come true because I am working in an international, highly respected business school, among wonderful colleagues, including yourself. And at the same time, I get to focus on the continent that I love. And because CEIBS is the only top business school with an actual physical presence on the continent. And for me, that's important. So.
You touched on it earlier, Nana. We talk about the term Africa because people often use this term, but of course, if you look at the actual area Africa occupies, it's absolutely huge. And obviously within that, not even just within the continent, but within a single country, there's lots of different ethnicities and tribes which perhaps until relatively recently didn't actually even belong to a particular country. So what can you tell the outside world about how should we use the term Africa? Is it relevant?
Well, I think so. It's interesting. I recently had to teach a session in the Gemba program, and it was on China and Africa. And one of the things that I had to keep emphasizing, not that I had to, one of the things I chose to emphasize a lot is Africa is a continent and not a country. It's very, very important to keep that in mind because there's just so much diversity that even I as an African, having spent most of my life, it can't even begin to comprehend just how diverse we are as a people. So I think it's just important to keep that in mind and keep an open heart, even for us Africans, to learn and not assume that, this person is from Kenya, so they're just like a South African, or they're just like a Tanzanian, or they're probably not. So I think that the attitude is always to just be open and willing to learn, even for Africans, and even more so for people who don't have as much interface with the continent, because there are people I've met who are from China, but probably know more about the African continent than I do, because they spend more time traveling in African countries. So again, just relax the assumptions. That's what I would say.
I mean, and I've also been in China for a while. Some of the best Mandarin speakers who are not Chinese I've met are actually Africans. And I hear that you're actually embarking on your own Chinese language journey. Can you tell us how?
Don't put me in the same sentence with the best Mandarin speakers. Don't do that, because oh my goodness, I'm learning. So I have a fantastic teacher, Sherry, that the school arranged for me. I thought that was a fantastic arrangement. So I'm learning, and my main struggle is with having, because I've studied other languages. I mean, we study French in Ghana because all our neighbors are Francophone countries.
Right.
I studied Spanish as well, and I speak 2 Ghanaian languages in addition to English. So I kind of came to study Mandarin with a lot of enthusiasm. But when I started, I was a bit daunted, because the common approaches that work for Latin-based languages doesn't work, obviously, for Mandarin, because even when you're studying the pinyin, one word has different pronunciations, and even for the same pronunciation, different meanings. So that was tough to adjust to, still adjusting, but yeah. My teacher is good, and I'm still very enthused about learning. So we'll see how that unfolds over time.
How far have you got so far? Have you used it out in the wild, as it were, to do anything like buy stuff?
Okay.
Or?
So 我说一点汉语。
非常不错。
So basically, I think my safety technique is to learn words that are very important, because my sentences, the pronunciation, I still tend to speak with the musicality of English, because with English, a word doesn't have a specific tone in every instance. It depends on if it's in a question, if it's at the beginning, at the end, and I tend to bring that to my speaking Mandarin, which is not helpful, because you're saying the word, but you're saying chicken instead of something else, because of the way you're pronouncing it. So it's I've just learned to stick to words, especially in restaurants. I've had to call the waiter Fiyuan, and then jiga, just like keywords. So that gets me by in the day to day. And if all else fails, I just use the app, let them speak, and then it translates, and then we go.
There's, as many of us know, there's a lot of room for kind of comic miscomprehension in Chinese, much more than other languages. So it's an added challenge there. So how about your personal life? What are you doing outside of the classroom? Do you have any interests, or what do you do when you're not on the campus?
I love to read. So stereotypical academic reading, writing, I love.
I would have been disappointed if you'd not said that.
And I'm a Christian, right? So I'm very excited that there's a church not too far from the campus, and I'm quite immersed in that community, and I found so much family and brotherhood there as well. So that's very heartwarming. I'm very happy with that as well. And I also enjoy spending time with friends that I'm making here, and colleagues as well. So quite a few of my weekends have been spent hanging out with one colleague or friend or another. So that has been nice as well. And then I spend a lot of time on my phone as well throughout the day, especially very early in the morning, and then maybe sometime in the afternoon, just catching up with my family, with my kids and all that. So
What are you reading right now?
What am I reading right now? I'm reading one Shamin's book on gorillas can dance, and I'm also reading some other Christian literature just to help me in my walk, especially now being away from my family. That I think the one downside for me of being here is being away from family. It's been quite difficult, but I've had a lot of help and support, emotional, spiritual, and all that. So I read quite a lot to keep up my faith and just keep that communion with God and with other Christians as well. So that has been very helpful.
So it's curious to know, in your career, have you had a mentor or someone who was particularly significant or helped you advance yourself in some way?
Yes, I have, but in many different respects. I can't say I have like one person who's like more or less like a life guru who covers every aspect of life. But so, for example, in my career, my former dissertation advisor, Professor Itini at IESE Business School, he's been such a help and an example to me, because he exemplified to me what it is to be a scholar, a very brilliant scholar, but to be humble and to be personable and to care about people. Because if I look at my PhD journey and all that I've been able to accomplish, even having a family while pursuing the PhD, it's really because of his understanding and his compassion, and also his guidance in terms of shaping my journey and my growth as a scholar. And even now here as well, I've just been so blessed and so fortunate, because even here in CEIBS, I've also got the chance to work with Professor Taeyo Kim, who's also another solid scholar. And he's also he's also a father figure. He's very caring in the way in which he pushes me to bring out the best, but he cares, you know, and he's always checking, you know, are you okay? And always making sure that you're not crumbling under the weight of everything. I've also had a fantastic head of department, Sebastian, who is also very caring in terms of always checking up and making sure that I'm doing okay, checking, you know, how my teaching, lining up the teaching is going, in terms of my settling into campus, giving helpful pointers. I've had so many colleagues, I can't begin to name them all, Shamin, I've had friends say, Hyun Park from the marketing department, and really almost every person you meet on campus is really interested in fostering your growth in one way or the other. But I think, yeah, there are a number of people who I feel like I've been given in different aspects of my life who have really been an encouragement and a help, and I'm really grateful for them. I can't begin to name them all, but these are just a few, right, in the career space, and yeah.
Well, I'm very impressed, Nana. You've actually anticipated my next question, which was going to be, do you have a message for the CEIBS community? But it seems that you've already given some greetings to the people who helped you so far.
Yeah.
But is there anything else you'd like to say to everyone before we wrap it up?
First of all, I want to say thank you, a very big thank you for the warm welcome that I've had. People have been exceedingly kind, beyond my imagination. So I'm very grateful for that. And I also wanted to say hello to those I haven't met yet, those I'm here to have deeper discussions with. I really look forward to getting to know as many people as possible. And yes, so I hope to see you around. That would be my message, yeah.
Well, thank you, Nana. Thanks for your time. It's been a really nice chat. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks
Thanks
you.
a lot.
Thank you.
you.
Bye.